On today's show, Kevin Durant fired up and trolling in Denver leads the Rockets to a much-needed bounce-back win against the Nuggets. Reed Sheppard with a big-time spark off the bench and more. It's all coming up right here, Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What is up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now the #1 sports podcast network. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets. On today's show, we're breaking down the Rockets' 115-101 win against the Denver Nuggets, a game where Kevin Durant was fired up and trolling, demonstrative, if you will, to describe his behavior. Reed Sheppard with a big-time game off of the Rockets bench, 28 points for him. The defense locking up the #1 offense in the NBA, and a bounce-back performance for Jabari Smith Jr. We're getting into all of it on today's show. And, of course, thank you so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you so much for being an everydayer. And joining us now is your weekly co-host, host of the B-Block podcast and Sports Radio 610's Brandon Scott, who you can track down on Twitter at Brandon K. Scott, here to break down a much-needed Houston Rockets win, a great response to a Nuggets team that they were 0-2 against so far this season, having lost to them just earlier this week and coming off the heels of that really frustrating, disappointing loss against the Pelicans in overtime. This was a much-needed win, Brandon, for a Rockets team that came out and really they felt like they were the aggressors in this game, a 115-101 dub, and spearheaded by none other than Kevin Durant himself, who was fired up all game long. He was, what were they talking about on the broadcast? He was driven. He was direct. He was demonstrative.
And demonstrative, yeah.
Demonstrative was the one. He was fired. He was trolling. He was dancing all over the Nuggets at one point. This was arguably, I think, my favorite Kevin Durant game of his in a Rockets jersey so far, because it felt very much like the Rockets of last year, right? It felt like when Dylan Brooks would get the team fired up and when he would talk trash with the other team and, get the guys to rally around him a little bit. And that was Kevin Durant in this game. He was talking trash. He was getting into it with Tim Hardaway Jr. and then Bruce Brown a little later on. Like they were jawing, going back and forth the whole game. And he did all that while also being just commanding his space and demanding that his teammates, that his team treat him as the superstar that we know he is and can be. 31 points on 14 shots, was 5 of 6 from downtown, had that little dance party after hitting his 5th three on the Nuggets, 10 of 11 at the charity stripe, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, had a block mixed in there. Fantastic night from Kevin Durant.
Yeah, and he talked after the game about the team just needing some juice. You could tell that was intentional, right? When Vanessa Richardson asked him about the trash talk, kind of calling it a historic trash talking night for Kevin Durant, he just said that he was louder about it, and we could see that, like the stuff that you mentioned, going back and forth with his former teammate Bruce Brown, going back and forth with Tim Hardaway Jr., going back and forth with the crowd, which is something that he is known to do. When Adelman gets ejected, from the game in the fourth quarter, he's doing the get him out of here thing. Like he knew from the very beginning that the team primarily needed to win first and foremost, and he played like that, but that they also needed something else, just a little bit extra, some kind of edge. And maybe you can explain it with the kind of the Dylan Brooks parallel, or somebody that just kind of brings that extra juice that it seems like sometimes this team is lacking. But credit to Kevin Durant for taking it upon himself as a leader on the team. You got to figure that he's heard the whispers of either them not using him properly enough down the stretch, or him not commanding the ball properly enough down the stretch, or doing enough to get the ball, and some combination of all of these complaints. And here he is, just like from the start, like, 31 points on 14 shots. I'm going to come out there. I'm going to be a difference maker on both ends of the floor, as I have been. And I'm going to talk trash while I do it. I'm going to dance on you while I don't know what the hell that was, the little dance thing that he did. But you could tell that he was feeling himself at that point.
Oh, absolutely. And look, here's the thing is early in this game, right? You could tell KD came out in this game with a different mentality. We've seen him be really aggressive early in some of these games for the Rockets, through his early Rockets career so far. He's had games where he's come out and you can tell he's firing on all the cylinders from the jump. But in this one, there were moments where maybe he didn't get the ball on a possession, and you could tell he was barking at his teammates, telling, "Hey, get me the ball. I want it." Right? This was the most aggressive that we've seen Kevin Durant in demanding his touches. And after everything that I talked about last show with the kind of falling apart, the collapse against the Pelicans, the at times lack of offensive hierarchy in this game, this was one of the games where it felt like, okay, Kevin Durant is staking his claim as the superstar of this team. Get me the ball. There were possessions where he was visibly frustrated when he didn't get the basketball, and he would go back and he'd talk to his teammates about it. You see, them jogging back down the court to get back on defense, and he's telling, Sengun or Ime, "Hey, you've got to get me the ball in that spot," or telling Ime, "Hey, they've got to get me the ball here." And I think that this bleeds into some of what we talked about last show is, it's not any one person's fault, this dilemma that the Rockets have had where they haven't been able to get Kevin Durant the ball in certain situations. It's a little bit on Ime. It's a little bit on his teammates. It's a little bit on him, right? And it's great to see him just embracing his role as the superstar and demanding those touches, because I do think everything else will kind of sort itself out if he is a little bit more aggressive about getting those touches, because you see his teammates falling in line in this game, right? His teammates did a much better job getting him the ball in those spots where he could be successful. And then sometimes you just got to get out of the way and let your star player be a star player.
Yeah. And we've talked so much, I think, from the very beginning about the process. And I can remember Kevin Durant even going back to media day saying that the process might take time. And then you hear him and Durant and Fred VanVleet on a podcast recently talking about their process. And what they're talking about is essentially how they get into their offense, how they attack, how they get him the ball. And you just saw him be much more deliberate in that. I couldn't agree more. And you're going to need that. Like the point being that this might be a big part of the process is realizing and understanding that getting the ball to Kevin Durant is the priority, especially when you absolutely need a bucket. Understanding this hierarchy that they're still trying to figure out, like actually having the role players figure out their roles. I thought the role players, and we'll talk about some of them, played their roles to a T on this day specifically. And Kevin Durant, one other thing about him that I want to mention and give him credit for is only 3 turnovers from Kevin Durant today. And I want to shout out that one play that looked absolutely like it was going to be a turnover, where he's getting pressed and he's dribbling the ball. Because he's so long, it felt like he dribbled the ball like the width of the court, right? And he was going to lose it. And then he gathers himself. He gets the ball, gathers himself, and knocks down the mid-range jumper, which I thought was excellent, because it feels like any other night would have been a turnover, would have been one of those KD, bad either ball handling or passing moments, and it wasn't. So shout out to him for only having 3 turnovers, being aggressive, being assertive, being the superstar, being the lead dog, and then on top of that, allowing some of the other guys to step up as well.
Absolutely, you saw it in the post-game interview with Kevin Durant. I'm making this assumption here because I didn't see it on camera, but Kevin Durant was going to be the post-game interview, and then it wound up being a tandem post-game interview with Kevin Durant and Reed Sheppard. And I have a sneaking suspicion, right? That was that entire situation was created by KD, right? Like KD wanted Reed Sheppard to share in the spotlight with him. And that's the type of veteran leadership that Kevin Durant has provided by inspiring these young guys, by motivating them, by encouraging them. And Reed Sheppard, the babyface assassin, was having a little bit of trash talk of his own accord, and this is what KD had to say about that.
They can't come at my dog like that.
Oh, yeah, man, it was a great little post-game interview. We're going to talk about the babyface assassin, Reed Sheppard, his huge spark off the Rockets bench, 28 points, hit 6 3-pointers, 6 dimes, a huge game for Reed Sheppard, arguably the best game of his young career to date, as well as the defense on display in this one, shutting down the Nuggets offense, holding them to a season-low 101 points, as well as a huge bounce-back game for Jabari Smith Jr. We're going to get to all of that here in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. The season's heating up, and DoorDash is a way to keep fans in their bag the whole way through. Whether you're watching the highlights, the tunnel fits, or just for your favorite player, DoorDash makes the entire season more fun because every player has their bag. With DoorDash, fans can have one too. DoorDash keeps your snacks stocked, your gear fresh, and your watch party vibes absolutely immaculate. Because look, those late night interviews hit, and then suddenly you need chips at midnight. DoorDash is built exactly for that. From tip off to overtime, stay in your bag and order on DoorDash. Get snacks, drinks, gear, whatever gets you through the season delivered right to your doorstep. DoorDash in your bag all season long. Today's episode is also brought to you by Rocket Money. Ever feel like your money just disappears each month? It happens fast. A few subscriptions here, an impulse buy there, and suddenly the numbers in your bank account don't quite match the numbers in your head. Rocket Money helps you get clarity, track every dollar, and stay in control of your finances because managing your money shouldn't feel like a second job. Rocket Money does the heavy lifting for you so you can save more and stress less. Rocket Money finds subscriptions you forgot about that you were paying and helps you clean them up quickly. Seeing all your spending in one dashboard makes it super easy to understand where your money is actually going. So take control of your finances and cancel your unwanted subscriptions with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon, rocketmoney.com/lockedon. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Remember, the best way to help support our show is to listen every single day and then like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. The comments help us out a ton, guys. And you also know what time it is. Look, Rockets get a big win against a quality opponent.
Release the hounds.
Go let Locked On Nuggets know that we said what's up in their YouTube comments. All right, go release the hounds over there. All right, Brandon.
Hey, KD got you in the KD got you in the trolling and trash talking spirit too. I love that.
Hey man, he's inspiring. He's inspiring everybody out here. Okay, I'm with it. All right, let's talk a little Reed Sheppard here, Brandon, because Reed was by far the Rockets' second best player in this game, and he was a huge spark off of their bench. 28 points on 9 of 15 shooting, 6 of 9 from long distance. Nice. 4 of 4 at the charity stripe to go along with 6 dimes, only 1 turnover, 5 stocks, 3 steals, and 2 blocks in this game. And I'm not going to say that the defense was more impressive than the offense because the offense was really good in this game, but it's great seeing how much more comfortable he is getting on a game-by-game basis defensively, finding ways that he can be impactful, making little plays there. He's growing every single game on the defensive side, and if he gets to a point where his defense is just consistently solid, we know what he's capable of offensively when he's out there on the floor for this Rockets team.
Well, so if you won't say that the defense was more impressive, I will say it. I'll say it because I felt that way. And not that it was actually more impressive, because what he does offensively just is more impressive. He's a more impressive offensive player. I get that. But the defense was more impressive because I've seen him do things like this offensively before. Like I expect him when he's on and when he's confident and when Kevin Durant's putting that battery in his back like he does, like I'm expecting him to shoot the ball that way. But the most encouraging part of the stat line was the end that you talked about, the 5 steals, the blocks, the feeling that not just was he adequate on defense. Here's the thing about it. He gambles way more than you would like for an average player to gamble, or for like any typical player to do so. And even when he does it, you don't like it, but he's notably good at it. You know, like he's frisky. He's got really quick hands. That's probably
he's a defensive playmaker in the same light as Tari Eason. You don't think about Tari and Reed Sheppard being similar defenders, but they both make those gambles and they're really good at it. Exactly. So when it works, like he gets those breakaway dunks, he gets those easy opportunities in transition. He'll read a play. He completely read a play, sniffed it out from Jokic of all people, right? Jokic is not an easy guy to read and figure out where he's going to go with the ball. And Reed Sheppard had a play completely sniffed out and just snatched the ball right out of the air.
Yeah. And so he might not ever be like an elite point of attack, move your feet laterally necessarily type of defender. But we've even seen there where he can improve and has improved. And then those other parts that we're talking about here, where his hands are really quick, he's got really good instincts, and he's frisky, so he's got that. And he's, obviously quick and athletic. So he's got that going for him. Like it was a perfect example. The part about it all that I love was that it was a perfect example of, like all not being lost on a player defensively when they're young and they're still figuring it out and getting used to the NBA game and playing more than they have, right? He barely played last year, and now he's playing a lot. And I think it's just different, and it's an adjustment, and he's making it. And then we go to the offensive side where he's just cooking them, right? He's got, we were just talking about it a moment ago, where he cooks them from three in both the first and the third quarter, where he has three threes in both quarters, right? In each one of those 2 quarters, to add
and not even just spaced out threes, like throughout, like he had them in like a flurry. I mean, talk about a Curry flurry. Like that's we got to come up with a version of that for Reed Sheppard, because that's exactly what it was. 3 straight triples in the first quarter, a little personal, like not quite a 9-0 scoring run, but like a straight 9 points, all by Reed Sheppard there in the first quarter to get the Rockets from 17 points up to 26 points. And then it was the end of the third was what gave the Rockets the much needed cushion that they needed in this game. He went on a personal 11-0 run at the end of the third quarter. This game was 71-66. It felt like the Nuggets were building some momentum, felt like they were about to claw their way back into this game. It was kind of all Nuggets a little bit. That was the end of the third was not a pretty sight for the Rockets. They were kind of, floundering a little bit. And then Reed Sheppard rips off that 11-0 run from 1:15 left in the third quarters, where he hit his first 3, and he proceeds to hit 2 more threes in that stretch, as well as a couple free throws. A little 11-0 run there to give the Rockets an 82-66 lead going into that fourth quarter. And one of those threes was the ridiculous one with like 0 spacing in the corner, where he caught the ball right there. And Jabari was like 2 feet away from him, and he caught it and immediately elevated. He knew he was shooting that ball as soon as the pass came his way. I don't even know if he knew that Jabari was right there on his right shoulder, caught the ball and immediately elevated and knocked it down. That stretch, both of those stretches from Reed, and just kind of the pockets of play throughout, the facilitating, the assists. He had a couple really impressive dimes in this game. One where he jumped up and mid-air, like twisted, contorted his body, rifled a pass below the rim to, I believe it was Jabari Smith Jr., who was wide open, like playing out of the dunker spot on the weak side. And just some really great like point guard play from Reed Sheppard in this game. And the Rockets just feel like a more cohesive team out there when he is, helping orchestrate some of the offense. It takes a considerable amount of pressure off of Kevin Durant and Alperen Sengun, and it opens everything up for everybody on the floor.
It's just the latest example of, if he can hold up defensively, and he obviously did in this game, that he is their best option currently as a primary playmaker and point guard, is sort of in the traditional sense. And the fact that we've seen now multiple times, this is the latest example, and we can point to a number of them now, where he can take over a game. Like you can like give him the keys for a little while, for like small stretches. And he, like you mentioned, his own personal 11-0 run, he can personally take over a game. And we've seen him do it against some of the best teams in the league now, twice against Denver for that matter. Some of his best games in the NBA now have come against the best teams in the league. Even if you're going back to last year against Oklahoma City, like showing that he can be at his best against the best is a really encouraging thing for the Rockets, especially in a win like this.
Absolutely. And Reed wasn't the only one who was playing some stellar defense in this game. His defense was great, but the Rockets as a collective team, their defense was a lot more locked in than we've seen it in recent memory, holding the Nuggets to a season low 101 points. We'll talk about their defensive approach to this game, as well as the bounce back performance for one Jabari Smith Jr. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Gusto. Let's be real. No one starts a business for the joy of calculating tax withholdings or managing payroll spreadsheets. That's where Gusto comes in, to take the stress out of payroll, benefits, and HR so you can focus on running your business and supporting your team. Gusto is the all-in-one remote-friendly payroll and HR platform that makes managing your team simple, transparent, and fast. Whether you're hiring, onboarding, or paying employees, Gusto helps you do it all from one place without the hassle or the hidden fees. Unlimited payroll runs for one monthly price, which means no surprise charges at the end of the month. Plus, Gusto's automated tools like offer letters, onboarding materials, and direct deposits save plenty of hours every single week. So try Gusto at gusto.com/lockedonnba and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's right, 3 months of free payroll at gusto.com/lockedonnba. One more time, that's gusto.com/lockedonnba. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, the 115-101 Rockets win, finally getting one against this Nuggets squad. It's got to feel nice after how close the first two games were between these two teams to finally get over the hump and be able to, say that you have a win against one of the other, teams being viewed as one of the short list of contenders for this NBA season. And defensively, man, Brandon, this was, we talked about Kevin Durant and his how demonstrative he was, kind of setting the tone of this game, but it really felt like that helped tremendously on the defensive side of things. In particular, that second and third quarter, right, where the Rockets really clamped down on the Nuggets defensively, giving up only 16 points in that second quarter, only 21 points to Denver in the third quarter. For the first half, they limited Denver to 45 first half points, which is a first half low. Again, a season low, 101 points total for the game, held Denver to just 40% shooting overall. Felt like the Rockets were playing with a lot more pride and effort and intensity on the defensive side of the ball. They were really getting into guys on switches. They weren't just being so, laissez-faire about some of their coverages. And that's the thing where, I mentioned it after the last game, is like so much about defense is just want to and effort. Like, yes, it's about executing. Yes, it's about, KYP, know your personnel and understanding the scouting report and how you're supposed to handle certain guys. So there are the technical aspects of defense, right? Are you closing out properly? Are you shuffling your feet? Are you moving side to side? Like all those little things. But some of that can just be overcome by just go out there and try harder, man. And the Rockets actually took some pride in their defense this game. And this is what it feels like when they actually are all locked in, all five guys defensively, really putting their best effort forward. And it really felt like the starters brought the requisite defensive energy to set the tone from the jump in this game.
Yeah, there's only like a small stretch of the game where the defense is not up to par. And it only follows up like an offensive flurry. So like they start the game off like 10-2, right? On a 10-2 run or something like that. And then Denver kind of gets back into it. And that's really a credit to Denver because I feel like, to put this in proper context, and I think you did this, but it is the best offense in the league. Like we're talking about an elite offensive team here. And so they're going to go on runs. You're not going to just shut them out completely. They go on their run and they ended up, winning the first quarter, despite the fact that it really seemed like the Rockets had outplayed them, or at least it felt that way to me. Denver's so good offensively that they ended up winning the first quarter. But there's that stretch, and then there's a stretch in the fourth quarter again where they end up having to put the starters back in to kind of close it out. But everything in between there, right? Like the second and third quarter, like you mentioned, you mentioned the season lows. That 16-point second quarter was also a low for a quarter, I think. So when you hold the best offense in the NBA to season lows in multiple categories for a half, for a quarter, for a game, a low percentage, and essentially shut them down for the middle part of the game from the second to the third quarter and pretty much hold your water in the first and fourth. Like this was one of those dominant defensive performances that you've kind of come to expect from the Rockets in the past, but not as much this season. If there was one, I know we talk about this sometimes in our preseason, midseason, during the season reviews and things like that. Like, what are the disappointments of the season? Maybe that their defense isn't as great necessarily as you might expect it to be, or as it has been in the past. This was that, though. This was exactly what you expect their defense to be. And the reality about this team is, man, when they are locked in defensively like they were tonight or like they were today, they are almost impossible to beat. Like they can shoot themselves out of games at times. But with the addition of Kevin Durant, and we see what Reed Sheppard's doing, and, this wasn't a great Alperen Sengun day, but they've got so much offensively now. When they lock in defensively, they are pretty much up there with anybody. So this is what you would expect. This is how you're going to beat the Denver Nuggets. Like, you're going to have to really bring it defensively. They actually brought a certain level of physicality. So it was great to see the Rockets at least match that and at least not only match that, but to kind of one up it a little bit.
Oh, for sure. And just when you look at the dynamic duo for the Nuggets and what the Rockets were able to do, limiting them, right? Jokic, 25 points, but only on 20 shots. So not anywhere near his usual level of ridiculous efficiency, just 9 of 20 shooting from the floor. Only got to the free throw line 7 times. That was a big area, kind of like a key in this game, is the Rockets did a good job not sending the Nuggets to the foul line a ton. They had a handful of free throws there coming, with that little late rally where they cut the lead to 10, I think it was, in the fourth quarter. And then you mentioned, Ime having to reinsert the starters, bring back KD, bring back Sengun to make sure to close this thing out. He was not taking any chances at the tail end of this game. So unfortunate that those starters didn't get a little bit more deserved rest for this win. But, limiting Jokic in this game, felt like the team did a much better job at times kind of collapsing on him when it looked like he was going for his finishing move, so to speak. Like as soon as he picked up the ball and looked to go to, finish off a play, you had 2 and 3, sometimes 3 bodies all collapsing on top of him. You had a couple different moments with Kevin Durant getting a block over the top on Jokic, or Thompson coming over and getting a block on Jokic at one point, I believe. Just some really good defensive plays. Even Jabari Smith Jr. came over and got a weak side block attempt on Jokic. So just some great overall team defense guarding him, and then really limiting Jamal Murray. I felt like the Rockets were a lot more intentional about their kind of physicality with Murray, fighting over screens, really limiting any available airspace that he was going to get. They also did a great job not sending him to the charity stripe a ton in this game. There was one point where he got the and 1 on the 3. Josh Okogie goes crashing into him, and they both go flying into the Nuggets bench.
Yeah, but he actually kind of leaned in, I thought.
Oh, for sure.
And kind of drew that. But whatever.
If the Rockets hadn't wasted their second challenge earlier in the game, that could have been a moment where you burn a challenge on that to try and overturn it. But they were out of challenges at that point.
I thought he even almost pulled him down. He leaned into him, and I saw his arm up. I'm like, is he actually pulling him into him? This is ridiculous. This is absurd. Not to mention the fact that the Rockets are owed probably a call or two, not to go down that, to kick that soapbox, but they're owed a call or two in Denver anyway.
For sure. I'm with you on that one. It was one of those where it's I think at that point that was his 7th or 8th point in the fourth quarter, and he was kind of heating up a little bit, and it was all right, don't let Jamal Murray get hot now, because that's how you lose this lead that you've built up for yourself. But limiting him to just 16 points on 4 of 13 shooting, some great defense there. He had a couple turnovers. Jokic with 5 turnovers in this one. So just a really good job defensively on those guys, limiting them throughout the game, and also getting Jokic in foul trouble was a big part of this game too, is, just attacking him, being aggressive with him. And the reason the Rockets didn't have that challenge is because there was a play where it was, what was it? Alperen Sengun goes driving in, and I think it was just before, it might've been just before halftime. Maybe I'm mixing up my time slots here, but there was a play where Alperen Sengun went barreling into Jokic, knowing he had 3 fouls, trying to draw that 4th foul on him. And
he had 4 fouls in the first half, right?
We had 3 in the first half, and that's why I think it was just before the end of the half, and they were trying to maybe get Jokic to pick up his 4th and have him in serious foul trouble, and it wound up being ruled an offensive foul in real time. They reviewed it, and as we're watching on the broadcast, Ryan Hans is his feet aren't set, he's moving, there should be a clear and concise just turn the call over, and of course the referees were legal guarding position for Jokic, and it's
that's
come
right.
on, man, that's some BS. But I don't fault Ime Udoka for trying to throw the challenge out there, because if you do get that challenge call and overturn that call on Jokic and get him to pick up his 4th in that situation, then that completely changes the flow of the game for the Nuggets, and it puts them in a really, really rough spot. So I get why he also to do it.
And he also had a point. I thought, that could have gone either way, but they also had, how about the Rockets and their tremendous success in challenging calls this year? That was pointed out in the broadcast a couple of times.
Oh, absolutely.
But normally when they challenge a call, they're on the right side of history. So
I believe they're 23, because they were 22 of 28 going back to last game. So I believe they're 23 of 30 now, because they challenged twice in this game. They got the first one right. They lost the second one. So 23 of 30 sounds about right. And I think they're leading the NBA in conversion on challenges, which is really impressive given how bad they've been the past couple of years under Ime Udoka. That was one of my running just gripes about this team, is how bad they were about when and where to use challenges. I don't know if they just did a lot of film study this offseason or something, or maybe they replaced the guy who was in charge of calling for the challenges before. But man, it's been a lot better this season for sure.
Yeah. No, it could just be due diligence, but to the point of just the defense, I mean, not enough can be said for like allowing, a Jokic or a Murray to make some plays here and there, but to be good enough and to say, hey, we're not going to let them take over a game, to accept that they're going to make plays and that they're special, but they don't have to have a generational game against you. They don't have to have 30-point triple doubles against you, right? It just does not have to be this way. And they were intentional. All of the stuff that you mentioned, and how it was by committee, and the foul trouble that you mentioned, I think was huge as well, because that impacts how aggressive they can be and how, just kind of how you approach the game going forward. So, a lot of the keys, a lot of the ingredients to beating this team were on full display in this game, and the Rockets did a hell of a job with it.
And one of the other serious impact contributors in this game for the Rockets was Jabari Smith Jr., who had a major bounce back game after what felt like just a really, really awful performance against the Pelicans, out of a number of different bad performances against the Pelicans. It was just a rough all around game for the Rockets. But Jabari in that one was 5 of 18 shooting, had, I think it was like 4 or 5 turnovers, maybe. It was not a great game for him. So to see him come out in this one, 22 points, 10 rebounds, couple assists, couple block shots, 8 of 14 shooting, 5 of 11 from downtown. This was a great Jabari Smith Jr. game. Like, this is the type of game that you want to see Jabari have, where he was spotting up and hitting at a great clip from the perimeter. He had a couple of, little midi pull-ups, some finishes around the rim, just a really solid all-around game for Jabari, to where this is the kind of production that you want out of him, especially in a game where, one, you had more of a quieter, you had a quieter Alperen Sengun game, right? Not his usual, not playing to his usual level, just 8 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. So kind of a quiet night for LP. But Jabari was the recipient of a lot of those passes when the defense did start to load up on one of Kevin Durant or Alperen Sengun. Now, in this one, Kevin Durant did a lot better of a job of just being aggressive and still looking and hunting his shot, even knowing that there was going to be a double team or a blitz coming. He was a lot quicker and more intentional in his offense, but there were still some plays where KD had to get rid of the ball, and then he gets to the middle of the floor and it's with Alperen Sengun, and swing, and it ends up in the hands of Jabari Smith Jr. on the weak side as the recipient of one of those passes. And he did a great job as one of the Rockets kind of play finishers in this game, delivering on a lot of those moments where the Nuggets defense kind of, takes the first hit from the Rockets to, covers the first action up, or even the second action, and then ball winds up in the hands of Jabari Smith Jr. He's able to make something with it. He had that 1-3 where he caught the pass at like his ankles and rose up and still sank it. I think it was his final 3 of the game, his 5th one. And I don't even know how he was able to convert that one, because that's such a tough catch to be able to reach all the way down and then swing up in one fluid motion and knock down a shot. He played a ridiculous game, and the rebounds were also really important in this one when you're going up against a front line that includes Nikola Jokic and Jonas Valanciunas. He wound up out rebounding both of them actually in this game, and that was a big part of the recipe for success for the Rockets in this one.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it was one of those games where Jabari Smith. So the charm of Jabari Smith Jr. is that his game is friendly to any lineup. He's plug and play, can play him in pretty much any lineup. And when he's on, he's 3-and-D, and that is valuable in any lineup. He provides you a certain level of a certain amount of length. And so, Mike, he did all of that. You talk about the rebounding, the block shots, the physicality. Like he's a much more physical player this year than he has been in previous years, which is, I mean, it's notable and noticeable when he's out there. And this was another example of that. Like at his best, he's knocking down threes, he's playing defense, and and he's blocking shots, which is something that you don't, that you hadn't seen as much of in previous years. And I would say really, like, all of the guys that you expect or want to perform out of a Kevin Durant double team, like, this is the thing, like who's going to step up when Kevin Durant gets doubled? Some of what you're talking about now. Those guys, by and large, I thought performed, like the Reed Sheppards, the Jabari Smith Jrs. Of the world, even in a couple of cases with Ime Thompson, who was 7 of 14 in this game and had a couple of dunks. And he also, I thought got away with a pretty cool offensive foul that I didn't mind being not called an offensive foul when he shoved Jamal Murray and just slammed it on him in that transition bucket. And I was perfectly fine with that. But yeah, no, Jabari was excellent. This was dare I say, a quintessential Jabari Smith Jr. game. This is ideally how you would have him play. Be active on both ends of the floor, knock down his threes, impact the game defensively, and be kind of that connector that everybody knows that he can be.
And there was one little stretch there as the Rockets were kind of, waffling about for a moment in the third quarter, right, where they started to lose, kind of lose the reins on the game a little bit before Reed Sheppard had that flurry to kind of give them some breathing room going into the fourth. But there was a pair of back-to-back possessions about midway through the third where Jabari had a bad pass, turned the ball over. Then he had like a post-up attempt where he spun into a second defender, lost the ball on that. And it was like, there's still some moments where like Jabari maybe is doing a little bit too much offensively, or we don't need to see the offense, I guess, running through Jabari Smith Jr. Those are the moments that I could probably do without a little bit. But at the same time, he did a great job. Like, this is one of those where like Jabari needs to just be a star in his role, right? And when he's able to deliver in that capacity, it looks great. Sometimes I think there's moments where, and I think a lot of the young Rockets are susceptible of doing this, about taking, overstepping a little bit, doing a little bit too much with it when it's like, hey, let's get the ball back out. Let's get to what we know is good. Put the ball in either Kevin's hands or Alpe's hands or Reed's hands, and like, let's run some, traditional offense. We don't need to see Jabari Smith Jr. trying to like wheel and deal off the dribble or make something happen. Like,
dude, I'm so glad you mentioned this, because I have to go back and look because I'm going off memory here. But either the first or second possession of the game, Jabari Smith Jr. is bringing the ball up the court. I can assure you, because I said to myself, oh my God, they're going to start that stuff again. Like they're starting with this here early. One of the first few possessions of the game, you'll see Jabari Smith Jr. is bringing the ball up the floor. And I'm like, man, I'm as big of a Jabari Smith Jr. fan as there is. But what is this? This cannot be life. This cannot be what it comes down to. What's weird is, except for when, other than Steven Adams, almost anybody is allowed to bring the ball up the floor, other than Steven Adams, Jabari Smith Jr., and probably Tari Eason when he's healthy. Those are the guys that you don't want handling the ball. Basically, anybody else is allowed to do so. And somehow early in this game, you got Jabari bringing it up. I'm like, is he going to call a set two? Is he going to ask for a screen? Like, is it ISO Bari here? Like, what are we doing here against the Nuggets? Like, I don't.
For real. Outside of a couple of those moments, right? A phenomenal game for Jabari Smith Jr. He was bombing it from deep. So was KD, obviously. So was Reed. Those three guys combined to hit 16 of the Rockets' 19 threes in this game. And then shout out to Josh Okogie, 3 of 5 3-point shooting in this one as well. A quick little hat tip to Okogie for his 3-point contributions in this one as well. Wasn't hesitating. The whole team just playing with a lot more confidence than what it felt like they were playing with when, in the previous game against this Nuggets team, as well as the kind of the collapse there against the Pelicans. So it was great to kind of wash the taste out of that loss out of your mouth with a quality win against a very quality opponent here in this Denver Nuggets team. And I will say, as just one little observation before we wrap this thing up, there were a couple moments, and look, this, not the best Alperen Sengun game, right? Quiet night for him, but obviously had a bunch of other guys stepping up, so it didn't ultimately matter. And he was still able to contribute in some smaller ways here and there, but only played 30 minutes, just not his game, right? Or not his usual level of play. But there were a couple of moments, right, where, Sengun would be calling for the ball from Reed Sheppard, and Reed just kind of like, Reed actually like looked him off a couple of times and like did his own thing. And like, that's where there's going to be some growing pains, right? Where like Sengun, is absolutely one of the Rockets' 2 stars, right? Wants the ball in his hands, wants to conduct the offense a little bit, but there's going to be some growing pains, as you're factoring in Reed Sheppard, as these 2 guys are getting used to playing with one another, playing off of one another, and balancing these reps and figuring out, okay, when do you let Reed initiate? When do you let Sengun initiate? When do you let Kevin initiate? And the more that the Rockets are able to run those 3 guys especially together, because that's when the Rockets offense is at its best, when it's running through Kevin, running through Alpe, or running through Reed is when it looks like it's at its best. There are some moments where Ime Thompson can make things look good, especially in transition, but the half-court offense hasn't looked great with Ime Thompson running the show so far this season. It feels a lot more natural and connected and cohesive when he's in that off-ball role, playing out of the dunker spot, playing out of the corners, which you saw a lot of in this game for Ime Thompson, and it just looked a lot better for the Rockets overall offensively in this one. That's something that we're going to have to talk about and revisit in a future show, but we want your thoughts on this Rockets 115-101 win against the Nuggets. Give us all your comments in the YouTube comments. Give us your thoughts down there. B. Scott, you know the drill. Let everybody know to track you down at.
Catch us at the B Block Podcast. You can get that wherever it is that you get your podcast, and also on YouTube, the B Block Podcast, and on Sports Radio 610 twice a week on Wednesdays and Fridays.
And that's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Rockets. As always, thanks so much for checking out the show. Remember, the best way to help us grow the show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing, and then like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. We look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.